You know when you're ready.
They're on. It's on.
You start. We'll call the
Recording in progress. Sorry.
we will call the August 3rd meeting to order at 7:03. I would like to make a short announcement, and that is one of our planning and zoning members, Harry Otto, resigned effective today. He sold his home and moving, so that is why he is not here tonight, nor will he continue to be. We will do the Pledge of Allegiance next. Brenda, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Before we get to the minutes part, we're going to do public participation on non-agenda items. I believe we have Alex Wacker, who would like to speak to us tonight. Please come up and take that chair and give us your full name, address, and then go for it.
Okay. Name is Alex Wacker. We have just purchased from my mom the 327 McMakin Road right here out the window right there. And the purpose of the agenda is what you said, or what I wanted to talk about? Is that
Yes,
the other one?
this is a non-agenda item,
Yeah,
but this is
yeah.
public participation, so you're welcome to do that.
And what I'd like to kind of talk about is, as you guys know, we're building a house on the property, and I talked to Tammy just the other day about we're going to be also buying the 10 acres next to that's right here on the corner of McMakin. And I had kind of mentioned to her that we'll probably be putting up a barn because I have a bunch of equipment like tractor, skid steer. We do hay. I have animals. I'll be bringing more on. There'll be a very lovely Brahma bull that probably will be very popular in town. It used to be in Aubrey, had its own Facebook page. Don't know why. So I was talking to her about wanting to put up a barn, and she had kind of mentioned the way zoning and everything works. It seems like there's a lot of hoops and stuff, I guess is the best way of putting it, to kind of like have to figure out how to do it. And one of the things she had mentioned is you can't put up a barn in front of your house. So I'm trying to figure out, and she had said, come in, kind of discuss and kind of bring up maybe some relevance or maybe some rethought in how the zoning goes, especially with the 10 acres that I'm buying adjacent to it is where I'd like to put it. Visibly from where we're putting our house, I can't even see the barn. So, and it makes sense to where the 10 acres is. We want to keep it rural. We want to keep it country. And like I said, it's all, the rest of it's going to be pasture and all that. But I would like to use the front corner and put up a nice barn to store equipment, hay, stuff like that, obviously for the animals that I have. But the way zoning right now kind of reads, and she said that she might have found a different way to maybe do it, but it seems very complicated to take down a building that's pretty much a hazard at this point, which, you know, we'll go through the right way to do it if we get approval for the barn, to be able to put up something nicer and a nicer structure. It'll be all re-fenced in, nicer fence and all that. And I just kind of want to get maybe some thought on from y'all as to maybe the way zoning goes, which I'm sad to hear that the one gentleman that does the zoning stuff is now just left us, but it seems like there's a lot of complications. And I used to live in Saddlebrook, and there wasn't really much complication at the time when I lived here in the early 2000s about putting up a shed or a barn or anything like that. And it seems like there's a lot of new rules and stuff and restrictions as to what you can put up and where you can put it up and all that. So I guess what I'm asking for, and what I'm kind of here to kind of let y'all know is it seems like if you're trying to make the place better, is there a way that like special addendum or like a specialty type of like, hey, let's let the city decide? Like I said, I want to make it look better, not worse, obviously. So it's a question of like, is there anywhere that addendum wise later on in the city, or they can start voting on trying to make, because everything's different. You have a 2-acre zoning law and you have a 5-acre zoning law, but what if somebody comes in with a 3-acre? They're kind of like, well, we don't know who to, like, which one do you follow under, it seems like, that's just, it's just random example, but we're just trying to figure out how to build what I need, but also would like, but also, make it nice and make it look good for y'all in the city, especially being right across the street, instead of having a building that's falling down and probably is a hazard to everybody's health in general anyways. So, and like I said, the main thing is just to kind of maybe start clarifying or having some better understanding of the rules. Because like I said, when I talked to Tammy, we went through like 4 different ways of possibly doing it. And she already like, oh, nope, that way it won't work because you have to go from RB2 to this, and then you have to get it all replatted. But now your house is back there. So now you have to put your barn behind the house. And I was like, just want to take the house down and put a nice barn up front. I don't think there should be that many complications. So I'm kind of hoping that with me being here today and actually y'all hearing me kind of maybe take into consideration about, okay, every instance, I know there's probably a lot that can fall in a general category, but some instances should be taken under and maybe be considered by the town if possible. So
we cannot really speak with you and address this with this being a non-agenda item. I'm sure that you have been told by the town that you do have options, which would be going to the Board of Adjustments for things that you are hoping to do that do not fall within the ordinances. So they can tell you about that. I would like you to clarify for those who are listening and also for us, the 10 acres you're speaking of, is that the little yellow house property
ma'am.
on the corner?
yeah,
Then just to the south of that is the property that you already own
the
or
20 acres. Yes, ma'am.
own
Yes, ma'am. We own
own
that. Yes.
also.
Mhm.
So through the town, you would have to decide whether you're going to plat those individually. I believe right now you have rural business, so that also would have to be addressed. So at this point, Yes.
It's just factual information, Ed. I spoke to Ralph about this morning since he wasn't going to be here, and he asked if it could be put on a future agenda. Because it's not on the agenda, they can't go into discussions.
Yeah,
But the issues, the town went through all of that, and he can't go through the Board of Adjustment variance for this situation. So Ralph asked that if it be put on a future agenda to discuss.
well, one thing that I would want clarified is whether we're being asked to actually change the ordinance, which would change the ordinance for the entire town.
So
by
that's why he
addressing
wanted
one
to ask Ralph
property.
asked just put on a future agenda to discuss, not for action, but to discuss those
Yeah.
types of situations.
Okay,
He said he
So-
felt the town would rather see a barn, that area undeveloped than developed. But again, he asked for it to be put on a future agenda.
it definitely needs to come back where we can talk to you about it and this body can discuss it. We can ask questions of the attorney. We can't do anything tonight. I did want you to clarify where it is, and then details on all of this. I think you'll have to be a little bit more, have it clarified in your mind, and then come back as an agenda item.
okay. And like I said, it was just kind of a food for thought and to come in and start basically like the process of like, okay, can we do an agenda on it and all that, but kind of, like I said, just a food for thought to start the ball rolling per se on, okay, yes, we can clarify this, and yes, just please, we'll let you know, please fill out something, and then we can go from there. So,
Thank you. Staff will tell you exactly what you need to do to proceed on all this.
okay, all right. Well, I do appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good night.
Do you have comments on the approval of the minutes?
I didn't notice anything.
Yeah.
I did.
Oh.
It's just a little bitty insignificant thing, but it is on page 3.
We don't have that.
And it is paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4. It says cul-de-sac, T-E instead of D-E. If you just change that to a D, that's the only thing out of the whole thing that, you see it?
Yep.
You got it? Okay, good.
Then I motion that we accept with that one spelling change.
All in favor?
Second,
Oops, sorry. I guess we better second.
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, regular items. Fence ordinance updates, discuss, consider and make recommendations to the town council to call for public hearings regarding an ordinance amending Division 4 Special Requirements, Chapter 20 fencing, walls and screening requirements, and any other sections of the zoning ordinance for the town of Bartonville related to fencing, walls, and screening. I believe we have some kind of presentation or something
Yeah,
tonight on that.
I'll let her.
And Chairman, Opera, our planner, has put together a visual display of, we've gotten the discussions of living screens versus, with the walls or the, 50% transparent fencing, et cetera. So again, they've spent time so we can, there's 2 points or 3 points that from my history that I've gotten from Ed and others about where this precipitated, the 407 discussion and then leading to the other streets. So the questions that I see tonight that are important are, where is it? Only the major corridors still? Do we want to focus it back on that where we don't end up with lots of fencing? Or is it important to do it community wide? And then again, the issue of living screening versus the other, if there is a distinction there for you as you go through this. So if you'll keep those in mind, please.
Well, good
Barbara.
evening. Yes, thank you. So we have Aiden's here again tonight with us, but we have put together some visuals for you. I think what would be helpful is we're going to go through what we think you might be in favor of, and then that middle category where we're not so sure that you can weigh in on. And then we kind of divided it into a category that we didn't think you were going to go for so much, but maybe once you see an example, it might go into the yes category or something like that. Once we figure out, the look of the fencing and screening that you want, it will likely be more easy to administer if we just do a list of allowed fence types instead of a percentage of transparency in terms of review and submittal information. So for example, if you wanted to allow wrought iron with masonry columns every so many linear feet, that's very easy to review instead of a, percentage of transparency. But we'll go through these and you guys can kind of weigh in and see what you would like to let's see.
Might be warm enough.
No, denied. It's okay. Not even that, Tammy. So in April, I guess you guys considered a draft ordinance. And then at the July meeting, when I was here last, we talked about, what the purpose of what we're trying to do is. We're trying to protect the rural country feel. And although the openness of that look is important, it was more important to you guys, just generally speaking, to try to capture that rural country feel in terms of what's along these major corridors, at least. And then what are the major corridors? We've got that list for you, the materials. And then we also talked about, well, what about individual properties or individual homeowners versus a subdivision, coming in with 20 lots or something like that. So we've got some, oops, wrong device. So currently the fencing is specified along FM 407. In July, in that item, it was 407, and those roads you see listed there. So those would be considered your major corridors. And then, you would have your local streets, for example. So if you wanted to apply this on all of your streets, that would be a different standard. But it's our understanding you were just interested in major corridors for now. So I guess if you would like to change that, we can take that feedback and write that accordingly. These are the yes. We felt like you would probably like these and tell us if we're wrong, but we're going to go through each of these. So this is a white ranch or picket fence look. We have a lot of these here. So we felt like not only was that the clear and visible, but also the rural country feel. Here's a close-up. Now, a lot of the picket fencing that we see is also brown or natural color. You'll see when we get to the maybe or no category, we put black picket fencing in there because it does have a more stark modern look. But you could do any color or at least the neutrals. But we have the black in the maybe or no category. So white and brown or natural color we have as the potential yes. Wood picket fencing. This is obviously an apartment complex. Please don't focus on that. Just focus on the fencing. But you know, the wood picket basically with masonry columns still gets that transparent look and also has a rural vibe to it. This is black wrought iron with masonry columns. Now there's a couple of these. I think it might be out of place. Uh-oh. Now I can't go back. Let's do previous. I got it. So one of the things that we thought this picture was nice for is black wrought iron can be your traditional vertical bars, or it can be a different material like this that can still have transparency and have a rural feel to it. So we have this in the potential yes category. Before I move on to the other categories, do we feel comfortable with these yes ones so far? Or are we already having questions?
And again, they're talking material use, what Aubrey was talking about. It's very difficult to measure 50% transparency from a practical sense when we're going through plan reviews. But if you pick the materials and spacing, that's something we can do all day.
Yep.
And again, are you talking about stone, concrete pillars, or do we want natural stone pillars? Again, you can detail it down to that level so that you have that look. Yes, Miss Brenda.
Fine, except for that when I think of picket fencing, I think of the solid, like more solid picket fencing going this away.
Built like the white picket, like that.
No, she's saying like
Yeah,
almost like a privacy
I
fence
don't
type
consider
look.
Oh,
that
okay.
picket fencing.
I don't either.
So
And I
Okay.
wouldn't
I
want it to
wouldn't
read
want to say
picket.
picket.
So what would you
because
like
They
to
call
call
it
this
split
kind?
rail or
I don't know what that's
No,
technically
that-
called. I
that
like
one with
that,
the
but I
concrete,
think
yeah,
picket
that
fencing
was
kind of
kind of
is almost a
split rail.
solid
Okay,
fence.
Okay.
But it's just made of pickets. And so
yeah, this is
Picket's
our
what's in
familiar with.
your entrance.
There's a
picture.
couple different kinds
Yes.
with the vertical ones, but this is also called white picket fencing, but call it what you will. We can pick a different term that's better descriptive for you if you like the look.
And Abra, I've seen it before in ordinances. Can we have visual depictions?
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely.
something we can,
Yes.
Yeah.
we
We
can
have that
actually
on
have visual
lights.
depictions
Mhm.
so that there is,
Standards.
we can take that mystery out. If
Right,
somebody calls
yeah.
it something different, we want to make sure that we're hitting what you want, not what
Mhm.
they thought.
I mean, I get that, you're probably gonna say this, the percentage is very difficult, but I still just worry if we don't have some sort of percentage that, I don't know, we'll just keep going, we'll see.
Okay, yeah, and so what the goal is tonight, I think, is to get consensus on the visuals, and then we can write it for you. And, you know, you guys can see if you feel comfortable with how it's phrased.
And so far, what you haven't shown us anything that doesn't already fit into what we
Right, exactly.
allow in fencing
Yeah.
anyway.
So it feels like it's going to be in the yes column,
Right.
is what our understanding. Now, here's the maybe category. So this is a maintained living screen. It's to use to block parking, or it can come in any number of formats. But what we talked about is this and how, you know, red tip photinias or something like that can get very unkempt. And so there's certain plant materials that we would recommend for a living screen that would be more easily maintained. And we have that coming up. This is the maybe category, right? This is the ranch bar or pipe type fencing, you know, with a lot of the rural estates, especially if you have cattle. This can have chicken wire in between it. It can have more bars, you know, more pipe, smaller pipe. It can come in any different varieties, but in general, wanted you to consider the pipe type fencing as maybe, since it is rural.
You'll see pipe and cable and pipe and no crawl both
Yeah.
all over the place in
Mhm.
Bartonville.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So if it was along a major corridor, is that something that we would be okay with?
One thing that I talked to the attorney about on something is, as we get more into the pictures, is this okay, but maybe they have a living screen behind. So
Mhm.
this is part of your subdivision. They keep that rural feel, but as the lots are building, they may want to have whatever those
Yeah.
approved landscaping plants are as a living screen backing up to, say, Jeter or McMakin or some of those other roads.
And maybe you
where they
allow
might be.
cable, but not chicken wire or,
Right.
you know.
So again, you can go down to those materials,
Mhm.
and primarily we're talking about subdivisions still. Again, y'all may change. We're not really talking about regulating your individual property owners at this point. It's those new subdivisions. I heard the concern about not trifecta. Well, that was the early one, trifecta. No, I'm sorry. Saddlebrook was the first one. There was concern when Saddlebrook started that it was going to become like Lantana, and of course it didn't. But then on McMakin, there was trifecta building that big retaining wall that looked like a big wall was being built. So again, there's some things that have happened here where this kind of drives this discussion of what do y'all want to allow, because we don't want anybody driving down and all of a sudden they're looking at Lantana again on McMakin or Jeter or somewhere else.
So, right. So there's variations within the, it's good. This is something that we understand. Not only the masonry wall is not favorable, but also the trail is maybe not favorable. So this is a rural country feel look in some places. In some places they consider this, and some places not. So we put it maybe, but it's my understanding it's probably a no.
It's a no for me.
It's a
How
no.
about the rest of it?
Okay, that's what this is for.
And
So
then a
no.
lot of the difference there is the curb and gutter. It gives it a complete
Yeah.
different look. So
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to see that. being
Now, well,
this
Yes,
one.
but
If-
there's
if
no
it was-
transparency through that wall at
Right.
all.
Right.
That is
Right.
exactly why
What we
we
wanna
started
prevent.
this process in the first place.
Yep.
perfect. Okay. So then we've got a retaining wall, and now retaining walls can be taller than this, right? So we have a couple more pictures with retaining walls in here, but you get into a situation where you can't really regulate the aesthetics of a retaining wall very much because it has an engineering function. But you could say that, there couldn't be any retaining walls within 50 feet of the front property line. That's going to significantly restrict even building a house in some cases. But, that is an option that you would have. So that's what we have in there just as a placeholder, is no retaining walls within 50 feet of the front property line.
I would be more interested in height.
Okay, a certain
That-
height.
That could be put in Bartonville and nobody'd whine about it because it's short. If
Yeah.
you came in and wanted a
Okay.
6-foot one of those, that's a whole
Okay.
different ballgame.
So do we feel like 4 feet is the threshold? That's typically the lower 3 feet. Okay. So retaining walls over 3 feet in height would be prohibited within 50 feet of the front property line. Is that something that would help
So
ease
are
the
you telling
concerns?
me inside that 50 feet, then they could go up to 8 feet and
Yeah, so they'd have to be set back all the way 50 feet. And then you'd have all that grass, maybe some landscaping in between. You could even require a living screen in front of it. But at some point, you would have to allow a retaining wall on private property.
Anything that hilly that would need that, do we?
I can't imagine where that would.
I can't
There
imagine
are
where it
some-
would ever come up. I think what we're looking at, go back to your subdivisions, we're looking at some developer wanting to fence in their whole subdivision, and
Maybe, Abra, that could be a point you can maybe address. I mean, a retaining wall is not a fence.
No,
It's
it
an
is not.
engineering structural feature.
yes.
And so I think the focus is fencing and a A retaining wall to me is a different subject.
It is, yeah, I think it is, technically, we would consider it a structure. I mean, it needs to be engineered and permitted. But at some point you would need to allow a retaining wall on private property, you know, because there will be situations where one is needed for drainage and stability of the land.
It would come down to definition.
Okay,
If it was being put up and called a retaining wall, but that wasn't really what it was for.
Okay.
Then the definition is going to have to be very careful on both of them.
okay, we can work with that.
Thing for private property anyhow, with whatever fence that a developer puts, so
Mhm.
a ranch type fence. If somebody's house backs up to that,
Mhm,
they're gonna want to put up a privacy fence. I
right,
mean, and we could not, we're trying to regulate the fence that developer puts up, but on their private property, can they not do pretty well what they want to?
well,
Frequently, though, that is
Yeah.
regulated. Again, on a major thoroughfare, you can regulate that. I backed up to a golf course in one previous house and you could not have anything other than wrought iron.
mhm,
That's right.
And it had to be vertical and it had to, so you can still regulate that.
true.
And
That's what we did for
Saddlebrook?
the, no, Saddlebrook was the very first one that came in. And that was never an issue in the first place because they didn't try to put some ugly wall there. But it's the one across from Tractor Supply that we realized has all of this frontage that's just about like what Lantana is. And that was when that gets developed, it's going to be really bad if we don't get a handle on it. But we did allow him to do something that I think was the wrought iron sections and then
Masonry
what people
columns.
do on their own property to screen themselves from it is not part of the fence, part of that fence. It's
Part of
on
the
their own
screening.
property.
okay.
And they're all not going to be exactly the same because the developer's not doing it.
Right.
So
Now, the
that's your
focus here
big
is what's
difference.
budding.
Right, yeah, because someone might have red tips
budding
and someone else
street.
might have cedars and someone else might have something else that's screening
Sure.
inside. And it will
And-
look more country because it won't be.
That's right.
All the same.
There will be situations like this, though, that are not part of a developer-made subdivision. And these are private lots, and it's not part of, you know, screening of a subdivision. And we're needing direction on if you would allow this on a major corridor.
I don't think we allow that any place in town now, those wood
So you would like
fences
to
like
keep-
that. We do.
Yeah, they did on Witherspoon. And
Witherspoon,
they did the whole lot to cover up all the junk he was hiding.
We don't require, right now, we do not require fence permits, so they.
Over.
Over
8
6,
feet.
over 8
feet.
Yeah, over 8 feet.
but I thought that we had definitions already that I just read that didn't have wood fencing in it.
So for a residential fence, it can be constructed of wood. And if it's a residential property, then that would meet that standard. However, that's what part of this discussion is, you know, if it was along a major corridor, we could say that it needed to be these fence types. And one of those, you know, sometimes you don't want to see all the little garden gnomes and whatever in somebody's backyard along one of your major corridors. You can require wrought iron with a living screen in front of it. That's another option that we have in here. We have all sorts of options for you, but I have to, what is that noise?
Oh, her phone.
Sorry.
I need that ringtone, Gloria.
Cider. Yeah.
I
Cider.
have a
can still
bunch.
do it.
I change them after I get tired of one.
So as Thad was talking about, there's an option where, oh man, I'm missing my arrows. Ugh. It's okay. We've got all sorts of types for you to consider here, but there is one that has a living screen. You love it like
These
that
are,
one?
these are all no's.
These are
by the way.
no's.
These are in our no
That's
category.
right.
We're just making sure. Keep you on your toes.
If anybody
Here we
ever
go.
asks, did you look at all of them? You all looked at all
So-
options.
This is an example of wrought iron with masonry columns, and you could dictate what the evergreen shrubbery would be along. But this is an option where you get the see-through and a bit of screening to So you could say in a residential setting, you know, a lot of people don't like the wrought iron fencings because of dogs, you know, they could get through or whatever, but they can space the wrought iron a little bit closer and also provide living screen. So, but we really do need direction on that wood privacy fence if that would be allowed along the major corridors.
'Cause I think you've got
The
some-
only way you would have that would be side yards.
Side yards, yep.
So you're
Which
not,
is a condition that can happen.
I think
Yes, it
room in that
is.
Macon, I think that exists now.
but you're not looking at a big, long
Right.
Right.
bunch of stuff
If
on
it,
individual properties.
if it is a 5-acre tract and it is a side yard, that width of a lot or depth of a lot can be quite a bit, depending on the shape of the tract.
I'd be surprised if anybody paid
I would be
the money
too.
for 5 acres
I would
and
be
then
too.
wanted that ugly fence put up there.
I would be too, but I've seen
But-
worse. So I
All
think,
right. Give me some options instead of that, because I
Okay.
suspect none of us are just wild
so
about that.
it'd be the yes column, or let's go back to your maybes here so that we can get direction on each one of these. That's not a maybe. Hold on. Da-da-da-da-da. Okay, here's where we were. So this is no.
Correct.
This is less than 4 feet, but we're going to define retaining wall better, and we're going to take a look at some options to address that concern.
Yeah, it's no more than 3 feet, I think was what we.
Oh, sorry, 3
Yes.
feet. I have it. Well, I wrote down 4, so 3 feet.
No, it was-
Good clarification. Thank you.
Good catch.
And then that's why I recap like 8 times. So then this same no. What about black wrought iron without masonry columns?
I don't have a problem with that. How about you guys?
No, okay,
Me too.
I like the columns better.
right.
You're okay
But
with
that's
it.
the.
But you still
bucks.
get your rural feel and transparency but you can require the masonry columns.
But that's really unfair to somebody who,
Sure,
that's expensive.
it is
fencing.
expensive.
And you make them put columns too, and they're.
Mhm. And some of
people
these
that
are
would be-
very long tracts and frontage, so, yeah,
A builder,
okay.
I don't care about. I mean, they can pay
But
for
an
it or not,
individual.
but I
Put it in
am
lot
worried
price.
about our individual
Yes.
people.
Okay.
The
so
builder will
that's a
put it in a
yes.
lot price. Your neighbor is
Sure.
just taking it out of the kid's college fund.
That's right.
Okay. Wrought iron with masonry columns with a living screen. I assume you'd be okay with that since you're okay with the masonry columns. Okay. This is the no category. Maybe you'll surprise me, but no. No.
That looks like Midland.
Yeah, it probably is.
Country, but.
Not the right, not the right
Not
country.
Which country?
Yeah. Chain link,
Third
chicken
world.
wire, that type of stuff. No. This is green wrought iron with masonry fencing. We felt it had a different vibe than the black, but what do you guys think?
Yeah, this was are y'all okay with that? Because this was actually in the no, because again, it didn't feel the same, but again, that's why y'all are looking at it.
I'm okay with that.
I don't.
It probably should
As
have gone
long
in
as you
maybe,
can
but-
see through it, I'm okay with it.
Okay. So with
I
that,
don't
Brenda's
think it's
not.
as nice, as attractive as black, but
Brenda, can you?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
okay, yes. To green. Yeah, that should have gone in the maybe. It's not bad.
Maybe not purple.
yeah.
So wood privacy fencing, no. Okay, and then vinyl fencing, no.
No, it looks like that.
It's just a night.
The vinyl
Now-
fencing
Vinyl
are your
fencing that's
3
the
rail.
The white,
Like the.
The horizontal
You were
planks.
calling
the picket fences,
the
we call-
picket.
yeah.
You can do.
Would you be okay with that?
I mean.
As long as
we
it had
already
the same
have it.
look?
Yeah, we already have that
Yeah.
all over.
Right,
and we-
but you would be okay with that,
Yeah.
okay. We can write that too. Okay,
That's really no different than
no, the same
Wood
look. Mhm.
fencing you see. I mean, those 3 rails or 4 rails.
And you can
either
actually
one.
maintain it
It's just
better.
that
Yeah.
it's terrible with horses, but
I bet.
they They can break through that.
Yes.
Retaining
Yuck.
walls. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of no, the only ones we took out were green wrought iron. We moved that to yes. And retaining walls is its own thing that we're gonna recircle back
Yes, we'll
around.
circle back to retaining walls.
In terms of living screen, are you okay with if we like did maximum, like only 6 species and they were evergreen and they couldn't get crazy width and height? If we locked it down in that way?
And again, we're thinking builders, not
Mhm.
necessarily individuals on this. So.
So they wouldn't be doing any other fencing other than this would be it? Is that what you're saying?
There could be 2 options. One could be like wrought iron with a living screen, and the second one would be just a living screen.
I'd have to see some of these plants you're talking about.
Okay, but theoretically, if you liked 6 of them that we showed you, and you felt like they could be easily maintainable, drought tolerant, all that stuff, then it might work.
Replaced when they die, otherwise.
Well, you can require them to be irrigated too.
And I don't know about you, Gloria, but I'm thinking not the same plant for just miles.
Me too.
Okay,
I mean.
so
I-
variation
you
of
know,
the,
landscaping is not
Margie.
42 of the same thing crammed together till you can't see through it, photinia or anything else.
so we could require them to change the plant type every 20 feet or whatever it is. Okay,
That's probably
Require-
too short.
well, yeah, we can, we'll ask our landscape architects
Yeah.
what's reasonable.
Do
Okay.
we require landscape berm at all? Any berms between
There is some
Currently.
screening requirements that are,
Haslett? We had subdivisions building up on 156 and it
mhm.
was bar ditch and they were building again, berms that helped break the sound, but the landscaping was there. It was varied. And then behind that, they had wrought iron fence that,
Mhm.
backed up to the home. So it really was a nice look through there, but it also gave that, when we talked about, sound, trying to break that from 407 or any of the other thoroughfares. That was a really handy way to, without having to plant a whole bunch of stuff. That berm really was a nice look.
1171, I noticed.
Yes, yes, lots of it.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Before you get to
Special-
24.99.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
I kind of like that look.
Yeah.
I
it
like
looks
that look
nice.
too,
Okay.
especially with those nice split
wrought
rail
iron
fencing on there to
yes.
make it look even more country.
Yeah.
Okay, we got that up.
Yeah.
And again,
Hi.
the look of at landscape berms as well, that we
Mhm.
require.
Like a solid. Okay, and then in general, height. So right now, 8 feet is a standard. What we're proposing is that all fences require a permit, and that's normal, or that's typical. Doesn't mean we have to. And then also, you have a maximum feet of 6 feet along FM 407 now. I'm guessing you might want to keep that, no matter what the fencing material is, the 6 feet rule. Yes, along major corridors.
I think
Yeah.
8 feet too.
If they're going to have anything big enough that can get over 8 feet, they probably aren't going to put them along 407
right.
anyway.
But this would be proposed on all those major corridors that were listed.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay.
And also on a fence permit, it can be a no fee, nominal fee or whatever, again, we're just looking to stop. Like, we just happened on my second day to go out for a drive and saw someone building across an easement.
Mhm.
And we're able to stop that before they actually put the entire fence up. It saved them a lot of money and headache. But it was
Yeah.
Corey and Tammy showing me around town that we found that because we don't require the fence permit. So again, we're not looking to be draconian in a fee, but we're looking for, just so we can see where those are going to make sure they're not over easements or those types of things.
And more than that, people don't know where their easements are.
Now,
And
this,
most
Okay.
of them.
It's a good reminder to have you, is it 811 or 611, what, 311, whatever. it is.
311 call before you dig or whatever.
Yeah, whatever that is, to remind
Yeah.
them, make sure you do this so that your neighbors aren't losing a utility.
So one thing to note too is I can feel Tammy's blood pressure rising. When you require this many more fence permits, that's review and whatnot. So you might have to lean on your consultant team or something to look through those if a flurry comes in or something like that. Because, we've got to check easements and plats and make sure they're proposing it on their property, and all those
Usually
fun
that'd be
things.
building official, I think.
Mhm.
I've seen in other cities, it'd be building official.
We have one, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
I thought so.
Yes,
yep.
we do.
I don't think it should fall on staff. If you had a packet, here's what you have to have. Here's the number to call the official guy.
That doesn't happen that way. That's all right. He only
Tammy,
does inspections.
they call in and she's like, that's all online, but I can take care of it right here.
But we can do that if you need help, we can do that too. So this is the individual lot versus subdivision thing. We tried to think of something to address that concern, but what I heard tonight was we don't want wood privacy fencing along the major corridors. So maybe this is moot. Yeah.
I need everybody to talk about something, because my thought process is we're looking at this for the whole town. And we're picking out these major roads, but we have large properties that potentially could become subdivisions on not large roads. So why would we choose certain ones and not look at all the roads? Am I
You're
missing
talking about
something here?
future development.
Yeah, we have to always look forward.
Yeah.
What's going to happen in the future? So we do all of this work and we make it all look good on our major roads, and yet some big piece of property up on Stonewood that suddenly is going to become a subdivision can do whatever they want because it doesn't fit there. So it doesn't seem to me like we should be looking at individual roads. We should be looking at the totality of the town. Now, I don't know how everybody else feels about that.
I think maybe there are some smaller roads, and I would hate to be on a smaller road and not be able to have a wood fence.
But we're talking subdivisions, not individuals. And
Oh,
that
okay.
we have to distinguish between
Can we do that
individual
legally?
people.
Sure.
Sure we
Okay,
could.
okay.
It would need to be written in a way
Yeah.
that we could administer.
Right.
So it would depend on, if, I think last time you were talking about 4 lots or something like that, but
Put in the
A
subdivision.
subdivision could be 2 lots.
exactly. So the definition of a subdivision is when you're splitting one lot into 2, or you're making any new lots, basically, is the layman's definition, but
It's defined that way in the ordinance, in the code already.
so we would have to either redefine where this fence regulation would apply. Maybe we just drafted you an example, an individual property on less than 5 acres. Maybe you would exempt them.
Well, no, because you're talking about the interior primarily, Gloria, that is all RE5. So anything else is somebody already there. So maybe that does catch it. If it's below 5 acres, it's okay. Anything else would have to be at least 10 acres because they can't split it in 2 unless each one is 5 acres. So if you start thinking down
No,
that
there's
path,
they can have 2-acre subdivisions.
that's true. So again, maybe 2 acres is.
Maybe 2
The
acres is the
threshold.
number. Yeah.
I hate to be dealing with property size more than individual people's rights on their property and us regulating somebody coming in and building a subdivision. Now, we just dealt with a subdivision that isn't a developer coming in and doing it, but it's a minor plat change, and we just made 4
Yeah.
lots out of, how many is that? 50+ acres. So, and they're on main roads. So we have to really be careful how we do this.
Is it possible to use the minor plat division? So again, if it's 4 lots or less, we don't care because typically that's the family. just a thought. I don't know how you feel, because that is a threshold. Anything over 5 lots, like if Mr. Fuller wanted to split his into 5 lots, it would not qualify. It is now a major subdivision and he falls into a different category. So I don't know if that's a reasonable.
Does that sound like to y'all?
So
Is
the
it-
4 is a threshold.
Yes, 4 or less is the threshold for the minor plat, for it to even be possible to be a minor plat.
Okay.
And that's where we're getting into Kennemer, Fuller, those are, families just trying to split up lots so their other family members can live there. And you're not really looking to regulate that activity, it doesn't sound
But
like.
that could be, this, your
It could be.
example could be this in that scenario,
If we don't regulate that piece, it could look like.
because it would be 4 lots or less.
And of course, none of us can imagine anybody wanting to do that out here, but
But
Somebody might.
somebody might.
Didn't they put on, what was it, Porter Road? Fence like that around the block, one several years ago. They tore it down.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yes,
That was a big old fight on that. That was that private porter and regular porter.
Once it's up, and it's 10 years down the road, and that family member now wants to sell and it becomes a subdivision, now it's already existing structure.
I heard about one that, there were cars, like her property's here and there's cars approaching and there's headlights in their windows all the time. So, you could do a living screen in that situation though. If
But they
you
could
wanted to
put a
block.
fence on the inside of a living screen where nobody
Yes.
would care.
Well, I think we would need to talk about that too. So if we're talking about abutting fences too, how far back would your private fence have to be from the screening fence? Because typically they can be right next to each other. So you're gonna get that. Right,
it's
well,
actually a
so
gap. That's a gap.
so,
It looks
like,
like
there's
it's built on top.
there's a gap,
Probably an
like
alley
where you've
between.
got private lots and it's still right there along your major corridor. But you wouldn't have your tall masonry wall or whatever. So you'd have that outdoor one. The
I
perimeter.
hate that.
Right. So if you allow wood fences on private lots, you could theoretically get this
Well, what
wood
if it-
fences behind a black wrought iron or wood fences behind a short stone.
With plants in front.
You would have to require the plants. Yeah,
Mhm.
but we could do that.
I think that's the only way to really get it.
Buffered.
And I hate to, that's up to y'all, you're planning and zoning, because it's one of those things, you always hate to add costs, but you're looking at it out for the entire community. And what is going to be the look that you want 5, 10, 15 years from now? And how's that impact the
The
look?
thing
and
is, as we
feel?
get more homes, it's gonna look less rural no matter what we do,
Right, right.
unfortunately. You build all those homes, even if it's see-through fence, it's homes you're looking at now instead of pasture land, and it's
Right.
not gonna look country or as country.
And how far, would you require them to set back before they could make a wood fence? Like, is it 50 feet? Is it 20 feet? Is it 30 feet? Where would you feel comfortable with a wood fence? Yeah,
What'd you say?
10 feet from the house.
yeah.
Right at the edge of the pool.
Yeah, right at the edge. of the
Right, exactly. The rest needs to be open.
So, so this
I'm
community
hearing
here,
community-wide.
Well, let's
This
face
community
it,
here, they
none of these
require-
are country fences. That is
Yeah.
not a country
No.
fence.
no,
No.
Country
these are-
fence are your split rail
Yeah.
ones that
Yes.
go vertically, horizontally.
white
The
picket
very
fence
first
she's
ones that you
calling
saw,
it.
those are,
but in this community, this is South Lake or Colleyville, I forget which, you can tell that they required wrought iron all the way back because it's viewable from the public right of way.
Right.
You can write your standard to where if the fence is viewable from the public right of way of a major corridor, then it has to meet these standards. But if the houses were all the way back, behind these first ones, then you wouldn't be able to see the wood fences. But these corner lots or the ones that you can see from the public right of way, you could make the
That's
transfer.
fairly common.
Could you word it that way,
Uh-huh.
that if
Uh-huh.
the
Viewable
if the
from the-
house backs up
Yep.
to the major thoroughfare,
Mhm.
then it has to be
One of the
able to
allowable.
see to, or else a living thing, but not a wood fence.
Or actually even if it was their side yard that was against the major
Right.
thoroughfare, instead
Yeah.
of backing up, it
Right.
would be the same scenario.
Right, you would
Yeah.
still want to
Yeah,
prohibit the,
Right. I mean, that looks great.
Is that
you
fair?
know.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
it
no, because if
is,
they're
someone
abutting a
developed
major
next to
thoroughfare.
me
right. If you're
Okay.
and they
building-
made a road right along my property, I would hate that.
or if you maybe had bought your property already and you just assumed that you could put up a wood fence at some point and you were already along Jeter or whatever.
That would be, and
Uh.
of course, typically these, we're worrying more about the new subdivisions. And that would be in your disclosures.
This would all be perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because typically when you buy, like when I bought backing up to the golf course, I knew my privacy, and I've always loved an 8-foot board on board privacy fence because I grew up in Dallas. And Dallas, good
Yeah.
fences make good neighbors.
Yeah.
It's a different world. But backing up to the golf course, when I bought it, I knew then that I could not ever put up something beyond trees or shrubs. So
Things are still, because I have 5 acres on Jeter,
Mhm.
Here you go, see.
but beside me is Jacqueline's property. And of course, she's not going to develop, but someday that may develop. And if they put the road right along my property, I would hate it. Now, if the house is backed up along my property, it'd be okay. But if they literally put a road right there, I
A
would want
developer's road. I
I
wasn't
would
catching that.
want
Yes.
a privacy fence. See, that's my point. See, I mean, I know
This
that's
is-
years
Now,
away,
we're
but
moving back to individual property rights instead of whoever's developing if Jacqueline sold her property.
right.
and if
But
a
it's still,
road
we're
went
talking
up
about
there-
every street. So if they literally put the street there, it would still affect me, even as an individual.
It would affect you, but you can do what you want as an individual to put up a privacy fence to stop that,
Leave it
correct?
alone.
That's what we're talking about.
Well, I
We're
thought
not-
we had talked about the 4 lots and then we decided that even 2 wood fences was yuck. I thought that's, it's for a technical term, even 2 wood fences are yuck. So I'm not sure, let's put our picture back up here.
Then the trigger needs to be subdividing a property.
Okay,
Does it need, it doesn't matter whether it's 30 acres or 10 acres being subdivided to 2. If you're going to have 2 houses, and then that's the trigger, not you as an individual property owner who don't like what's going on next door, so you can put up your privacy fence. Is that, am I off on that?
it depends on what your goal is. So in this case, let's use Brenda's property. If she wanted to put up a wood fence along Jeter,
No, not along Jeter, it'd be
No.
along the side.
no, I'm talking about Jeter. So
Oh,
if,
okay.
if
Okay.
she wanted to put, if that was your side yard or,
It's
well,
not,
it's
but
not, it's your
okay.
front.
Yeah.
But if she wanted to put up a wood privacy fence, to fence off her, she wants a compound, then she would not be allowed to put up a wood privacy fence, or would she?
That's the question.
Because
No, we're
if it's,
saying
if
no.
it's, we don't like this picture, then
I
you
can't
should
anyway, 'cause
prohibit
it's the
it.
front of my house,
Yeah. you can-
per
Well,
standards.
we have
But
to
she's
imagine a
thinking about
scenario if it's a
somebody
side or
else.
a rear.
Who's
Yeah.
Mm,
oriented a different
Yeah.
way?
Let's say it's a corner lot, right? And, they've got frontage on Jeter and, frontage on another street, and their front doors on that other street. So then you've got a side on Jeter that traverses, 500 feet, 600 feet along Jeter. And then you can put up a wood privacy fence because you're an individual. And, maybe you don't install it all at once. So now you have 2 or 3 different fence types. Theoretically.
Well, and that's what you have to, it's hard. This is actually a stickier subject than you think when you get into
It's-
it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think we wouldn't want that, but if that were my side yard, I would think I would want it. because Jeter is
And-
becoming so busy.
Right.
So
And
I
that's
can
what-
see both sides.
And zoom up, zoom out, screening and buffering, that's what it was intended for from the beginning, is screening and buffering of homes from major roadways and the noise and all of that. So if you've got see-through fencing, it's just aesthetic. It's not serving any sort of screening or buffering requirement or any purpose other than aesthetic. But originally, these standards were put in place, and that's why they were masonry walls and stuff, because it protects residential homes from noise, light, odor, all that stuff from a major road.
I still think we have to consider individual property owners. And that's really not what was ever intended with this ordinance, was to take away her right. If
Right,
somebody's
right.
doing something rotten next to her, to be able to put a fence up, or you or me. Whether it's on Jeter Road or not, we've got a good example of that on McMakin where Broome comes. And we've got everybody facing Broome with their side yards along both of those corners, their side lawn are on McMakin. So what?
I think one has a solid fence.
I don't know. I'd have to go up there and look at who it, but again, we're not looking, I'm loath to regulate individuals within reason. There are some things we have to loathe and loathe anyway and do it. But it seems to me like the whole purpose is not to look at miles of wood fencing or wood fencing slapped up around, whether it's a 2-house subdivision or a 25-house subdivision. And we have to be careful. Now, that's my opinion. I'm one person here. I don't know how everybody else
I agree.
feels.
I don't think that we should infringe on people's personal property. Now, this example of where your yard's backing up to these major thoroughfares, but like now, if they built a road next to your property, would that be considered a major thoroughfare? See, you don't know because
We were
it's
talking about doing all
future.
roads.
Right.
We were talking about doing all
So
roads.
if you do, are we gonna blanket all roads? I mean, we just picked out several major ones for,
Well, my inclination is to do all of them and then get this right to where we aren't taking away individual property
Right.
rights,
right.
but we're still protecting from getting a big wooden wall around a subdivision of one kind or another.
Right.
I just don't know how to get there from here.
Well, in the process, when Omar was here and we were talking about Eagle Ridge, right?
Right?
I mean, he was really open to the fact that we wanted this see-through, that's a huge area coming around that curve. So we didn't want anything that was going to look solid. And he agreed, because I think he might live there, but the columns with the wrought iron and then some see-through shrubbery and all that. And I think most of the builders, that's what they want. They would like to do it the cheapest way, but that's where we come in and say, look, you want to build this, then it has to be pleasing to our community. And we just have to stick with that. I mean, if they want another subdivision, then this is the rules. When you bring in your plans, then we have to say you have to have it to where it still maintains the country look and you can see through.
Comments?
I tend to say that, agree that we're looking at the developers, not the individual, and that,
We don't intend to infringe on the individual rights here. We don't want to do that.
and keep it with all roads within the city instead of just these 6 or 7. Is that what your thoughts are?
I think that would be a fair.
You okay with that?
So
Okay.
As far as
Typic-
the
Oh, go ahead. I'm just wanting to recap.
Oh, yeah, but as far as the types, again, when we look at like the split rail fences such as that, do we want to require, I mean, it looks nice, that's country, but if they're building houses behind it, I mean, we want to require some sort of a green fencing, I mean, a living
Right,
fence as
right.
well, or just that, you know, the first one you showed, you know, just the pipe
So-
fencing or
Yeah.
whatever. Could we require something beyond?
I mean, we can, but I think the individual, whoever buys that is gonna put it up.
I do too.
Yes, they would.
Definitely.
And we're leaving it to them if they want more, then they put up more, and it's not smack dab up against that, probably. Or even if it is, at least it's different from one
Right,
property to
right.
the other.
Yeah.
Something's
there.
bothering.
Is that
me.
yours?
Well, that's not my property, but that's
Oh.
what my fence looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's. So typically screening and buffering is required for all new subdivisions around the perimeter. And we can keep it what's typical, screening and buffering standards for all new subdivisions around the perimeter. And we can write it as it's typically written. However, in Bartonville, we would say we don't want the masonry screening wall. We would prefer the white picket, whatever we're gonna call it, with landscaping, or the black wrought iron with masonry columns, or the black wrought iron with all with landscaping in front. And then whatever the developer does with the individual fences would comply with the regular fence ordinance, which could be wood. It's typical in Texas for the wood fences. So we would anticipate seeing some of that. But if you limit your screening and buffering to 6 feet, and then Thad comes in with his 8-foot wood fence, you're going to be able to see 2 feet over the top of, well, it's going to be transparent anyway. So you're going to see Thad's fence.
And limit the screening and buffering as far as natural, like plants to 6 feet, because you could put a tree there and that's gonna be more than 6 feet.
Your evergreen shrubs is what I was saying. So like, I mean, you've got it at 6 feet now. For
Fence,
407.
Fence, right?
Yeah,
No, it's fences and walls along FM 407 cannot be more than 6 feet tall, period.
Right.
Is how it's
Right.
Well, this is where that discussion.
So
came in,
then
because
if
Corey
we
was talking
have
about the living
living
fence is considered, but I think
screening,
we
6
separate
feet is
those.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And if y'all-
landscaping is not a fence.
I
Right?
think that's the
Right.
biggest piece.
yeah.
Right.
You
Fence is a
lost me
structure.
on what it is you're
Gloria,
looking.
to go take back, and then we were just having this side discussion. I apologize. When Corey was here, that was the discussion, and we've basically separated that. She was talking about from a planning perspective, the living screen was considered a screen, a fence. We're separating that out.
Good,
And
because
that's there's a fence, and then there is living
Landscaping.
screen,
That's
landscaping,
right.
living
You can
screen,
have
whatever you want to
landscaping.
call it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Allow that to be pretty free and open.
right.
And just regulate the fence portion of it, that hardscape, if you will.
I remember saying to Corey, that's not a fence, that green stuff.
Then we want to make sure we would, again, I think.
But
that
did
was
I hear
the-
that we
Your
wanted
definition
to add
comes in.
landscaping to certain fence types is what this new sentiment was.
It makes it look nicer, I think, for a
So that's
subdivision.
another category.
Well, again, Hassel
If
had
we're
that.
talking subdivision fencing, not individuals,
Right.
absolutely.
Yes.
Okay,
But I don't want to see a subdivision fence be wood in the first place.
No.
Because you can't see through it.
That's
Did not,
consistent.
didn't we put that already? No. bueno.
correct.
Yeah, that's.
But
Okay,
it could be very near the transparent screening device,
what could?
Which one?
a wood privacy fence.
I'm not thinking that.
Okay,
You show me something.
I will,
that's-
yeah,
That is,
there,
no,
No.
okay. So that's
That would be the perimeter.
the transparent fence, like the picket fence for is the dirty stone. That's where the dirty stone would be. And then you could have side yard fences, wood fences right behind it. Okay.
that's
Not-
not a
that would be-
picket fence, that thing.
No, I'm
down
saying it as you imagine. So that dirty stone, imagine it being a white picket fence.
Okay.
The split.
Okay,
You can
now-
Where the
see
location
Yes.
is, yes. And then you can have residential fences right behind it.
Only if you put living screening in.
Right.
So you
And not
want
by the
that.
developer. If
Yes.
Okay.
people in that subdivision wants to do that on their own, fine. But
Okay.
that developer does not come in and put something up like that and tell us that we like it.
And if I think we would require living screening if there's just a fence that
Perimeter
short.
fencing.
Oh, I
again. We're
know,
talking
Yeah,
about
that's screening and
subdivision,
buffering, right?
Screening and
to-
buffering around
yeah.
the perimeter. We don't
Yeah.
care as much about the rest,
Right.
but
Yeah.
this is their perimeter, which is going to back up to a major road or
Right.
the non-major road in the future as well.
So you're gonna write this to where no developer thinks he can come in and put up screening and then slap a big wood fence up or all around the subdivision.
And the
I-
screening would have
And
to be
here's the
behind
problem
that,
with
not in
wood
front of it,
fences.
right?
Well, it could be either.
I don't
It
want
would
screening
achieve
in
your
front of that. I think
same.
screening in front of that still would look ugly. I think the screening needs to be in between.
Okay,
Don't you?
Oh, yeah, I thought that's what we were talking.
Me
about.
too. She just said. it could
well,
be
we're
either.
drafting it, so, we can draft whatever you want.
I don't like that 8-foot thing. Are
The-
we taking that out that you just flipped off?
Oh,
there?
yes, so any fence would require a permit, basically.
Yes.
Here's what I see with wood fencing, and I don't think there's a thing you can do, nor would you with the individuals. But if we were to allow a developer to put that up and he builds his stuff and he hits the road, then they rot, they fall over, they do everything bad. You can drive right down 407 and look at what they're having to redo over and over again in Double Oak because they allowed it. And I think it would be a terrible mistake for us to ever let. I don't know why anybody build a wood fence,
I
frankly.
don't think we
they're
want a solid
trouble.
wood fence at all. Well.
I think
okay,
there's
so
gonna
here-
be
here's my
very
thing.
limited.
Driving to 407 right now, like Saddlebrook, if we let individuals put wood fences there, it still would look bad.
Yes, it would.
So I think we still are gonna have to, at least on the major roads, say no wood fences, even for the individual. I mean, I hate to say that. Because I know that a lot of those that are just right along 407 have put in ponds and put in trees, but if we allowed it, they would put in a wood fence probably to have privacy there.
I don't think their homeowners association would either.
Well, I
But
don't
we
know
can't
about the home-
regulate that.
Right. So I'm saying for us,
So this is on McMakin. It is a solid wood fence.
In Lamphall.
Is that the one you were talking about?
No.
And so
Oh,
I was just
this
driving
would
down.
But we
continue to be
inherited that.
allowed if,
I can go on.
they could get a fence permit for this because they would not be a developer. And it would be an individual homeowner theoretically. So just want to make sure that we're all singing the same tune. We want to allow wood fences as long as it's not a developer. See.
see, we go yes and then we go no.
I know.
See, so
Are-
I think
I
yes
am-
on all roads except for maybe just these very major ones.
If y'all get close, y'all still have to have a public hearing and we.
Yeah.
you know, before
Well, I
it's
don't
changed.
know
Oh,
what
this
to
would be
write.
horrible.
Yeah, you
I'm
gotta
out
get
that
close.
week.
I don't personally like wood fences because they always end up looking ugly and they look real pretty when you put them up. But
But people.
what's
have-
the alternative to
but
that?
people- Yeah, people have swimming pools, and you have a pool party. You don't want everybody.
Yeah,
driving
you
down
want-
407 looking at you.
I mean, we have a little tiny area that we have
Yeah.
wood
You know,
fence.
You kind of empathize with the people that do put up. That's a side yard I would take if they could show. me.
Right, and those conditions
So a
with,
front yard, they could not do that.
But they have,
correct, but with these large lots that you have, there are gonna be outlier situations where you could have a large frontage of wood fence. As you're currently
Maybe just
proposing.
definitely 407. I really
Yeah.
feel strongly.
Me
I
too.
really feel strongly that
Okay.
407 for sure
407.
should not have.
No.
I mean, I'm just being honest.
the solid fence is right next to Ralph's property.
Yeah.
407.
407 is pretty well covered in Bartonville
But
now.
Kennemer?
Starting down there,
No, the other
all
side.
the way up.
No, but if we allow it, then homeowners could come back and start putting them
Oh,
in.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm pretty adamant that I think 407 is definite. And-
no wood on 407, period, no matter who you are.
Well, no, you can have with the little picket ones,
picket,
but
not-
a
not the
solid-
privacy
no
fence, I meant.
Right.
solid.
No solid
No
privacy
solid.
fence of any.
We're
kind.
right back to the same thing.
Yeah.
Just on
No
407.
solid.
Just on 407. right?
All right.
No, I mean, that's what I is that what I'm hearing?
Is it governmenting?
Yeah, governmenting, that's a good term.
Okay,
This is what we always fight, what we know, what we intend and like, but you can't
Right,
trample on
right,
people's
exactly.
rights.
It's so hard.
That fine line always.
But it just looks so bad on 407
Yeah.
because that's where everyone goes through our town.
I have no problem with banning them off of 407.
okay.
Do you?
Not at all.
Okay.
That's where you've already got it. So
You already have that there.
Okay,
So we're good.
so then, I'm sorry to even ask, but we would allow wood fences except for developers on all the other roads.
I have to go back to individual property rights here.
Yeah, it's a hard-
You know, I may not like them and I don't like them, but we're 5 people here and we may not like them. But who are we to tell somebody with their own property that we don't like the look of it, therefore they can't do it? Philosophically, I'm struggling with that. I understand we want to make things pretty and we want to keep things country, and so do I. And I hope that the bulk of the people we attract in this town feel the same way we do, but I'm just not so sure we have that it is good for us to be regulating the devil out of people. You know, that's what California does, is regulate every bloody thing. And
We pay y'all the big bucks.
Dang, I need to get my free water tonight. No,
what is that?
it's a little energy drink. They're really good.
Okay. So,
Individual lots. Let the
except
pro-
on
let the in-
407.
Let the individual, yeah, except for 407,
Do we
but
want to
individual
size it
lots.
all?
We already have it in there. We're not having a big problem with wood fences here because it's been always available and people who have need of it have used it, but we're not seeing it all over town.
One thing we
Why
can
would we
do
now?
too is, no, it's okay. I thought it was,
Oh, no.
so what we can do too is say, these are our preferred fence types as part of your fence packet. And we can say, we love the white, the, natural wood, these are our preferred fence
standards of-
types.
And see through.
And, even if you're an individual property owner, we would prefer not to have, solid fencing, but you could still get a fence permit for it. But you could,
Maybe just require a few trees or something outside of it just to make it.
you can do
If
that.
they want to
Yeah,
do
you
that,
could require
yeah. we
that.
could
Trees,
have them-
I mean, that
trees
would
every
be-
30 linear feet.
Yeah,
We could
Or
do
something.
that. We love trees.
yes, we do.
Yeah.
And we need trees. They make good
Yeah.
things and they.
Yes.
Maybe just add that to make it a
They
little.
do.
Trees every 30 linear feet.
Okay,
It's 30 or
That's a
30.
That's good.
compromise.
Yeah, that's
I
a
like that too.
compromise. Yeah,
Okay. I can write that.
Okay.
okay.
All right. I think
Look at that.
I
compromising
have
all the way.
enough direction. What we'll do is we'll write it up. We'll actually redline the ordinance areas and that will be what comes to you next. So that you have the exact language. We'll bring some, we talked about requiring a living screen behind the transparent screening device. So I can tell you what those plant types would be and you can look at them and make sure that
some pictures
Mhm.
on visuals.
visuals. Yeah.
So we can bring this back again. We can make any changes we want. Then the following time we can have hearings.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that was it. Let me make sure.
And
Because we-
nobody will say y'all rushed this through.
No,
There's been a lot of
that's right.
discussion. Again, the importance of individual properties, but trying to
Okay.
not end up with Lantana's 8-foot brick wall all the way down 407 or McMakin or any of the other streets.
Got it. Thank you.
I hope we didn't make it too hard on you.
Nope, I
That's
just,
okay.
we'll write it and if we get something wrong, we can change it at the, public hearing. You can condition your motion and then it'll travel to city council. So
Before we move on, which one did you think we would go for that we went? No.
You know, I think, so I used to work in Colleyville, right? And it was a big deal, the rural country feel. So I think it's just, they were all into this. This is Colleyville. So, you know, trail with trees and masonry but I understand what you guys are trying to do here, which is that keeping it open. And we had a big problem in Colleyville with people basically making compounds and, you know, just walling off, you know, entire sections of glade and stuff. So I think there's a downside to the solid masonry wall for sure.
And I think everybody's definition of what's rural is different.
Mhm.
To me, that just screams.
It's very
Suburbs.
suburban.
It
Suburbs,
screams
suburb,
suburbs.
yes,
It's pretty.
absolutely.
It screams suburbs.
And if you're looking for that, Colleyville probably has houses for sale.
They
So does
do.
Flower
Sure.
Mound.
They do.
Head on over
They
there.
do. But I like the,
Sometimes I still like sidewalks.
yeah. And there was,
Here,
What?
Well, because I always end up behind a biker going 7 miles an hour instead of 20.
but even if you put, unfortunately, we
they
see it all
won't
the
ride
time.
on the sidewalk.
Yeah, they won't ride on the
I
sidewalk.
know,
Yeah.
I know, but I'm just
Mhm.
like,
They're not up there biking. I came
seven,
over here.
7 and you can't see around?
Two things makes me crazy here that I think the developers are beginning to want more or are gonna want are streetlights, which is not.
They're
country,
so far
and
apart here.
sidewalks.
It's just, they're, I mean, even. in
Traffic
any of
signals
them.
require warrants before they can even be thought about. There
Yeah,
has to be traffic studies and,
oh, yeah,
and enough
especially
volume,
on a state road,
Before what could be thought about?
putting on a traffic signal.
traffic signal.
Oh,
But shoot,
She said
I must have
streetlight.
missed that part
Are you
of it.
talking about street
Street
lights?
street
No,
light, not
no,
traffic
those
signals,
little
lights in the neighborhood.
Lights with
The light
domes on
poles.
the top,
Oh,
those kind of lights.
oh,
That's one thing I noticed, y'all, we don't have a dark sky.
Yeah, that's what I was
ordinance.
about
We
to
do
ask.
not. When we came here, it
It's on my
was the
board.
most incredible sky.
Mm.
And there's so much light pollution and people sticking stuff in their trees
Well,
and
that-
all of that.
We can
has
put that on a
fixed it till you
future-
Can't see the stars well.
After we tackle the fences, do you want us to bring forward some lighting standards for you for dark sky?
Because we had dark sky in Haslett.
Yeah.
Again, when we're talking about trying to keep it rural country feel, we don't want, we tennis courts, yeah, I know we had that issue where they were shining in the back of somebody else's property. That was not great. But so again, that may be something to look at. I do have it on my marker board to look at dark sky standards.
There's some ordinances that, I know we talked about this.
you already have some light glare
Like
provisions.
glare, but not,
Well, I
not
don't
this or
mind
the other.
looking at it again.
Okay.
We do, but we don't have anybody around here that can go say your lights are
It's
hanging
complaint,
over
it's
into
complaint
somebody.
based.
Yeah,
Based,
yeah.
right.
It's complaint based.
We'll swallow the fences first and then we'll
Yeah.
circle back.
Okay,
That's gonna take a while.
are we done with this till we can move on? All right.
Everybody deep breath.
Item number 2, comprehensive plan review. Discuss and consider recommendations to the town council regarding review of the comprehensive plan and questions for a citizens survey.
On this item, I apologize. We've put, this is actually the draft of the questionnaire for y'all to look at. I had blended the 2016 and the discussions that I'd had with Gloria about how to do that. And that we discussed with the mayor as well about, again, a first draft for y'all to consider for questions to help guide the future land use plan. This is really step one. It should happen every 5 years. Y'all are right in that zone of, really taking a hard look at your future land use and your comprehensive plan. And again, as part of the ordinance and it's part of the previous plans, whether you create a subcommittee or not, getting the public input was always the big first step. So these questions track very closely with the previous comprehensive plan questionnaires. The purpose of that is, one, they seem to have worked to help guide you to this point, and also that helps you track changes in opinion. If you've got very similar questions, you can see if there's any change in people's views as you have new people move in, as people, get older and think they might want to do something different than they have been doing, just, it makes it a lot easier to track that. So we are here now to talk about, what would you want to forward on to council as far as the next step, the survey, and how we would conduct that.
I look over it and just get a lot, very wordy tonight. I don't know if someone would realize they could circle more than one thing on a couple of these.
Yeah.
So maybe make mention on, like, for agricultural uses, what activities would you like to see allowed? Well, obviously you don't want them to choose only one, right?
Check all that apply, basically.
Or something.
Something along those lines.
The way it was set up last year, it's like they could only choose one. Like, so if it's one of those where you only want one answer, they can only select one. If it was done electronically. So if it was limited, then it would open one. If it was other, they had comment, then they could write in their comments.
So they can't check more than one.
Yeah, so like on the item 2, how long you lived in Bartonville, they could only check one.
Right, of
Yes.
course, for that one, but
Yes.
for like number 9,
And then,
could they check more?
But people might not
Yes.
know that.
like,
Okay,
that, yeah,
okay.
so
Could just
I buy because of horses and because I wanted space.
check all the
Yes.
apply.
Check
Yeah,
all that
Yeah.
apply.
Okay, perfect.
And possibly 4 as well.
I mean, it
That's
was
really
set up
pretty
that
much
way
the
to
same.
answer, so.
I don't really see much change from the previous one. Is that correct?
Just some minor modifications to kind of hone those questions in and really get the feedback that we're looking for to guide that. But there was very little. Again, that helps benchmark. And the questions have guided you this far, and everyone I have talked to is comfortable with the current land use plan. So again, if the questions have helped get you here or you're relatively happy, changing it up significantly didn't seem like a wise choice because you couldn't tell what you were, looking against.
I thought that.
And one of the things we talked about that we have run across, I don't know how many we've taken, but I know when I was digging for stuff, we had a 2001 and then a 2012 and a 2016. And I don't remember, there was another one in there too. And one of the things that after we got the stuff back, a lot of times it was hard to interpret because there was some, like, I remember you weren't here yet, but when Christy Gilbert was here and she had all this and everybody could make their comments, but you had to figure out now which category was this answer in when they got to write stuff out. So sometimes we had to guess. So we tried to zero in with these on where as much yes and no, where you didn't have to try to interpret it, were really the tweaks, that we talked about doing. And I-
600 pages of comments of, not yes, no,
Right.
really hard to, how do we put that
Yes.
into the plan?
Yeah, and some of them fell into the same category, or some of them with the answer could fall into 2 or 3 categories. So trying to put them in was, I know that Christy went crazy trying to do it, and then we were never quite sure when you have to interpret. So we tried to do this where there's not a whole lot of interpretation here. We had that one from that university bunch that was the worst of all.
That was a class, and that's where, when we did that one, they didn't want us to reach out to professionals that have done this and do it all the time. So that one was a freebie. And so we got what we
Well,
got.
it should have been.
Yeah, and so that's like I commented to you earlier, if there's somebody that can guide you in that to help you get a good response of what you're looking for, because we're not the people
Right.
what I mentioned earlier, so.
I'm worried about 4 because I see people might just want to keep us country, but not do less commercial development because road is more important or something like that. I don't know if 4 gets us really.
Well, if you can mark more than one, then does that
Yes.
not?
Yeah,
I mean, as long as they for sure read mark all applicable or something.
I had put
I've already
check
got
all that
that.
apply there as well, in
And then
addition to 9. I
This
had
is a
written
little
that.
off, but I thought the fire was started by our model rocket. That's not a firework.
Which
A model-
fire?
The fire at the church across the street. Because this literally says
Yeah.
that there was a firework that started that, and I thought it was a model.
rocket was not fireworks.
And
Well,
I,
this
yeah,
does
original
not.
report was fireworks, and we need to change that because
Right.
again, after investigation.
We don't want
When I
to,
wrote this
anything.
paragraph, the information was it was firework. And again, they are different. It was a model rocket.
They have been known to start grass fires, though. The
True.
fireworks.
Well, we had
But
that. We
yes,
had,
You
but
could
you just
reword.
don't want to
we
say
had that on the
that.
4th. I don't want to say
was
something that's
that.
not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know that was, I didn't write this either, but
That- no,
I,
Again, that one was,
I thought it was fireworks. I thought it was kids.
It was kids.
Was
It was
kids.
kids, but it was a.
model rocket.
Model rocket, yeah.
Yep. So we'll take that piece out. There
You
may
know,
be something else
even
to
our
add.
fire thing that the county did wouldn't have covered that, would it?
Yeah, there was a fire ban.
The burn ban.
But-
There was, I mean, there was a burn ban.
But a model
fire-
Right,
rocket,
but would a
still
model
they could-
rocket?
right.
Mm,
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I don't
Yeah,
know either.
I'm pretty sure you still could.
Yeah.
If the attorney doesn't
Probably
know,
someone's
Uh-oh,
summer
we're in
experiment or
trouble
whatever for school or something.
Chinese.
I have 3 model
I mean-
rockets in my garage, but it's too hot to shoot. our-
There's just too many
Yes.
things that even with a burn ban, you can start a fire accidentally.
Yeah.
So
Well,
thank
that's
you.
like
All
Bob
right.
Springs, I mean, it was
Oh,
a
my
mower
goodness.
that hit a rock.
Well, there was one that was a guy trying to burn a spider,
Yeah, I read that story today.
tried to burn a spider
With a magnifying glass or what?
with a piece of glass or something, and then that's what sparked the huge fire.
You think you could put that out with your foot before it got.
Thank-
Well, he was a
He
little.
could have put that spider out with his foot.
And
too.
little.
Gotcha.
That's pretty good.
A little
Thank you
under
for
some
that
influences.
clarification, Brenda, because we want to make sure everything on here is
Put that in the
factual,
minutes.
you know.
Absolutely.
Previous questionnaire, make some remark about the water tower or something, or did we take that off of there?
It may have,
That's a done deal.
there's also 2 other things that are not,
Under the bridge.
Water under the bridge.
the bicyclists, we cannot regulate that.
I know.
So that was removed and there was one other one,
Bicycles.
that one and.
No, I thought we could regulate how many of the size of the pack, right?
What happened to
State
that
legislature.
ordinance? Do we still have
So-
that?
So literally they could be 50 of them now?
They have the state, I don't have the,
You can still write them
But
tickets for
there's-
going through the stop signs, but apparently public right
they
of
can't
way.
ride a certain more abreast. Like more than 3 abreast per state.
Well, that
law.
takes up more than a lane.
But they can be 3 abreast
That's a
and
state
40
law.
back.
I mean, if they could just do 15 or 20, I'm okay, but.
We
7,
regulated till they
7.
couldn't ride in a bigger pack than 9. I didn't. That was the council that did that when it wasn't P and Z.
But I guess that's no more.
Did that go away too?
The other one that was removed
Never
was
looked
gas
for that.
drilling.
That's right.
That's the other one that was removed because there's nothing we can do
No,
beyond what we are.
drilling.
Gas drilling regulations.
Drilling,
That was another
fracking,
option
all
that
that
was
stuff.
removed.
We've already got what we can do.
Right, we've gone as far as we can. So
Sure.
we've
And we have-
removed those items because really we're, other than getting people to complain about something we can't fix, that's really not gonna help.
You still have.
I'm
a-
not sure why on earth
Question
that one
for-
was
yeah.
ever on there in the first place, because we've never been able to
Okay, all right.
tell them.
Tammy,
they
do we have
couldn't
another
drive.
I
one of
don't need
these?
it. Don't worry. I don't need it. I don't.
Well, you're making notes.
Okay.
Are you
I'm
proposing
okay
this-
with this?
Yeah.
Are y'all okay with forwarding this on to council?
Yes.
Okay,
Is this just for Bartonville citizens?
Yes,
Do they put their address on it or anything?
no, but they answered the first question.
Okay.
the question there, and then we'll get into the details. Y'all don't have to worry about that
Are you
on how we
sending them
track.
a map? What's this C map one thing?
That was to make sure people lived in Bartonville because people in Lantana think they do, and some people in Argyle think they do.
Oh, I
Are you
bet.
kidding?
I bet they do.
Because of the same zip code?
Mhm.
Yes.
I'm gonna go out and
Absolutely.
paint town of Bartonville in white out there on that Lantana Town Center thing, and they've made that so dark, nobody can see it.
I've noticed that.
I think that was on purpose. Now, see, I told you, so now when it happens, I'll
When
get.
they write.
And it's on video.
Now we'll
It's on
know.
Video.
Great.
Well, then we could just have cobblestone streets all the way through.
There you
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. Is there more we need to do at this point other than get this survey rolling?
No, ma'am, not at this stage. Again, it goes to council. They look at it and decide if this is acceptable, and then staff will start working on getting those out in a way that we are getting Argyle responses and tracking what that is.
Great.
And we're talking
Looks
about
like we
maybe,
need to make a vote.
Then we need to look at
I think you're right.
item number 3, which
Hold it.
We
should,
need to make.
Oh,
a vote.
sorry.
We need to make
I
a
think we
Yes,
should make a
there's a
vote on number 2
recommendation.
to make a recommendation to
Yeah.
use this survey form. And recommend it or forward to council.
do I have a
Yeah, I
motion?
wonder, like,
On a recommendation to council to use this survey with the changes be added to it.
Do you have a second?
A second.
All in favor? Done. Okay, item number 3, discuss and consider changing the date of the November regular meeting.
Yes.
Amy,
I have no problem.
I don't either.
We're looking to change it to the following Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason we brought it so early, because when we get developments and we have our development schedule, we need to add those dates to that.
statutory
Yep, and-
shot clock issues.
Yep.
Probably will not make November, no matter what day you
Okay.
choose.
What date will that be?
That's November the 9th.
Okay,
Week after election.
right.
We couldn't do it the week before it's early voting. So that's why it was, because they keep the equipment and they move it around, but they're out election day. The equipment still may be in the room, but it'll be locked up and it's not affecting the integrity of the election.
Okay, so November the 9th it will be. We don't need to vote on that, correct?
Should they vote on it?
Why not? Let's just vote on
Okay,
it.
do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we change the regular meeting date from the first Wednesday to Wednesday, November the 9th for our regular November meeting.
All in favor? Unanimous. Okay, future agenda items. Do we have any?
Ralph just asked this morning when I talked to him, but I'll get the correct wording because he didn't really present what. he was talking
That was
about.
totally confusing.
Yeah,
Me too.
So I'll tell, after the meeting's adjourned, I'll explain it to you and you'll get a better understanding.
Okay,
So there may be one for the next
And
meeting.
then what about Mr. Wack?
That's the one we're talking
Oh, that's
about.
it?
Yes, yes.
I heard Ralph.
But-
So about this, except me, maybe you.
I don't know
Yeah.
oh, that
The
guy,
guy that
we're talking about
couldn't
that
explain
guy.
Oh,
himself very
Yeah, he
well.
was like,
I missed it.
The desire was to be less complicated, but sometimes you get yourself in a position where it's simply complicated.
But it is a complicated situation.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I couldn't figure out why he was here asking us when you guys always handle that stuff.
Because when people have questions about zoning and why they can't do things and why the rules are the way they are, then you need to go express your views to the people that make these rules.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think the bottom line was why can you not, that somebody have a barn on property without a primary dwelling?
Oh, which he did not say.
Yes.
he did not say that.
Yep, he did not say that.
I would have totally understood then.
And so that's, I think that's pretty much what Ralph said, it's not for future test.
Okay.
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 Unless there's something else that I'm missing, we will close the meeting at 8:36.
Thank y'all very much. I'll try not